streamed live. The camera is located at the back of the council chambers above the clock. Our meetings are governed by Robert's Rules of Order in accordance with Wasilla Municipal Code 2.04.090. In order to maintain an orderly and respectful discussion, I respectfully request the council to observe the following guidelines. Please seek recognition before speaking. No member may speak more than twice on the same motion without an affirmative vote to suspend the rules. No member may speak a second time on a matter until all others who wish to speak have had an opportunity to do so. These rules are in place to ensure that everyone's right to speak is respected and to prevent any one voice from dominating the discussion. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Cottle.
Here.
Councilmember Graham.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Crafton.
Here.
Councilmember Villock.
Here.
Councilmember Rubio.
Here.
We do have a quorum, Madam Mayor. All council members are with us in chambers, and our city attorney, Jess, is participating, just for the record, by phone.
Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And Councilmember Johnson, would you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you, sir. The first item of business is approval of the agenda. Before changes are discussed, are there conflicts of interest to declare? Hearing none, are there changes to the agenda? Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I'd like to move items 8.2.1, which is ordinance serial 2503, item 8.4.1, AM 2502, and item 11.1, IM 2501 to new business for discussion. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other changes? Yes.
Just to be clear, Councilmember Graham, remaining on our consent agenda this evening are the meeting minutes and then the one resolution. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Clerk, that is correct.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Is there objection to the motion to approve the agenda as amended? Hearing none?
Mayor?
Oh,
I didn't understand his, Councilman Graham's comment then. 8.2 and 8.3 stand as proposed in the agenda? No, we're moved to new business?
Item 8.2 would move to new business. Item 8.3 would stand.
Okay,
Item 8.4 would move to new business.
got it.
okay. Is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as amended. We are now on to special orders of the day. Recognizing outstanding athletes from Wasilla High School. We are so proud to recognize the incredible achievement of our high school wrestling team for their hard work, dedication, and victory on the mats. Your commitment to excellence, teamwork, and perseverance embodies the spirit of our community. We celebrate your success and the way you've represented Wasilla with pride and determination. At this time, I would like to transition to the Wasilla High School coach, who will recognize their athletes by calling their names to accept the City of Wasilla certificate and pins honoring their accomplishments. Congratulations to all the athletes. Coach, if you'd please come forward. And we have Coach Ryan Moat. We have a certificate for him for a job well done with these athletes. Get it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, well, when he gets here, you'll let me know, we'll come back. Okay, we are now at commission and agency reports. We'll hear from the Public Works Director, Mr. Shaw, regarding the Airport Advisory Commission.
Thank you, Mayor. Last week, we had the January Airport Advisory Commission meeting. The main topic during that meeting was a resolution of support that the Airport Advisory Commission put together to ask the council and then the state, hopefully, to support the addition of another three-phase power connection to the airport. We call it the Donut Hole Project. It would come off of GLAP, and it would add redundancy to the facilities at the airport. So I'm working with the clerks to repackage the AAC's resolution of support to bring it to you at either the next meeting or the meeting after that. Commissioner McCabe felt that support, if the council chooses to voice it, could be useful for bringing some funds through the state for that redundancy. So that was basically the action at that meeting.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Graham?
Thank you. I noticed in the minutes for the meeting, there was discussion about moving from a monthly meeting to a quarterly meeting. With all of the activities that's going to be happening in the airport the next 2 or 3 years, what's the administration's stand on that?
I brought it to the advisory commission to see if they wanted to do that, and they did not, so we're meeting monthly.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Eric. We will now hear from the city planner on the planning commission meeting. Cindy Wellman.
Hello. Well, I thought I'd start out with some excellent news. Yes,
Your name?
that's maybe not the excellent news, but yes, hello. My name's Cindy Wellman. I'm the city planner, and here comes the excellent news. We have officially placed an offer, and the person has accepted for our planning clerk. And so we're going to be fully staffed in the planning department. And her first day will be February 11th, and I look forward to introducing you to her at that time. So, but let's back up a little bit. We had a meeting back on, let's see here, January 14th, and we mainly discussed Title 16 during that meeting, but we also discussed a little bit about the capital improvement projects, because one of the things that the commission does is to give their approval of that project. And initially it had come forth during the December meeting, and they had asked for just a little bit more information on it, so we discussed it a little bit, as well as we're discussing how that, what their role is in that. And we're going to be delving more into that at some upcoming training. So, and let's see, coming up, we do have a meeting tomorrow night, and we're going to be discussing our comp plan kickoff, Title 16, and then on Wednesday night, we all go to school. We have our special meeting in which we'll have about a 4 to 5 hour class, and we're going to have the city attorney, Holly Wells, along with city clerk, Jamie Newman. The attorney will be discussing quasi-judicial training, and Jamie will be doing parliamentary procedures, as well as we'll all be discussing commission rules and procedures. So, yeah, that's about it.
Okay. Any questions? No?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the last athlete is here. Would you come back up and join, please? Now, if any of you parents do not want your children's picture on Facebook, please let us know. Okay, we are on to public hearing. Madam Clerk.
Yes, thank you. Public hearing ordinance serial number 2502, amending Wasilla Municipal Code Chapter 355 Salary Administration Plan to grant the city council authority to create, retitle, or transfer positions.
Okay. The public hearing on ordinance serial number 25-02 is now open. Anyone wishing to testify, please come forward and begin by stating your first and last name. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person.
Good evening. Bill Rapson, Chief of Police for Wasilla PD. Before 2502 goes through, I just want to read something that's in the collective bargaining unit that may kind of impact the decision kind of moving forward, which I believe would also be the two other collective bargaining units. For WPDA, it says that if the city recommends additions, deletions, or modifications to WMC Title III, the City of Wasilla Personnel Policies and Procedures, and/or the Wasilla Police Department SOP affecting employees covered by this agreement, the association will be provided a copy of the proposed changes prior to implementation upon written request by the association within 10 calendar days. The association will provide a short overview of the basis of the objection. The parties will schedule a time to meet within the next 30 calendar days to negotiate the proposed changes if such changes impact wages, hours, or terms and conditions of employment as required by law. Proposed changes will not be enacted until agreement is reached between the parties. I know that this ordinance is looking to transfer positions. That severely affects my department and how I operate. I'm a 24/7 department. I kind of go and can put people as needed, where needed, an emergency basis. This would restrict, not only does it CBA violations or CBA, requirements that I'd have to attend to by not allowing the transfer, those would severely impact in how I operate my department. So I think that with this, I know WPDA has that in their contract, I believe. I can't officially speak for the other contracts within the city, but I believe that they're gonna have something very similar to this. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else?
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. I'm Kimberly Green. I'm the Human Resources Manager here for the city. As Chief Rapson mentioned, WPDA's contract does require a notification period prior to any change of Title III, as do our other two union contracts with 302 and 341. I agree with Chief Rapson. The city's ability to pivot based on operational needs is really important, and sometimes it'll take us a little bit of time to get something through council. So having that authority with the mayor is something that we think is in the best interest of the city. I also wanted to mention, previously I did come up and talk to city council regarding the change that spurred the conversation around this with the addition of the position at the MATCOM for the assistant manager position. At that time during that council, it was requested of me to make an amendment to Title III to allow for notification to council if we did make such a change. That alteration was made. It is with the attorney's pending review. Once that is done, then we'll go through the appropriate notifications with the various unions before we bring it forward to council. But just to read you that language, it's an addition to 3.55.020, and the amendment states, if a vacant position is reassigned to a department other than the department it was budgeted to, a notification will be provided to city council to advise them of the change. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else?
Eric Shaw, Public Works Director. I think you've heard a couple valid reasons why this needs a little bit more discussion. I highly recommend that the council postpone this time certain till second meeting of March at least, to give administration be able to work with clerk and figure out what the legal implications are with our legal assistants. Jess wasn't able to be here in person, but I think that for this to move forward, there needs to be a little bit more discussion on what it does to the rest of the code that it affects. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Hearing none, I will close public participation. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance serial number 25-02?
Madam Mayor, I move ordinance serial 2502.
Is there a second?
Councilman Johnson seconds.
It's been moved by Councilmember Johnson and seconded by it's been moved by Councilmember Graham and seconded by Councilmember Johnson to adopt ordinance serial number 25-02. Is there discussion?
Madam Mayor?
The maker of the
Oh, I'm sorry.
ordinance.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, thank you, Mr. Johnson. So, this change, this ordinance changing code 2502 personnel for the city of Wasilla was brought about by actions from the administration, where a position was added without consultation of the council. That position that was added outside the normal budgetary process, where positions are identified and moved forward. So in the normal budgetary process for this body and for anybody, when the budget is put together and adopted, there are certain assumptions that are made, and those assumptions are made public, and those assumptions are what is the basis for building of the budget. One of those assumptions that's made in our budgetary process is the number of positions in each department. So that is essentially one of the building blocks, one of the keystones for the budgetary process to work. When those assumptions are changed, the budget is changed. The city council is solely responsible for the budget. Solely responsible for the budget. So when these assumptions are changed, the city council needs to be a part of that. That doesn't mean that there needs to be this micromanagement of different departments of the budget, but it does mean that the city council needs to be aware and needs to be part of the discussion where you're restructuring departments, which then affects short-term and long-term liabilities for the city. And don't think I'm calling employees liabilities, but the necessity to pay employees is a liability to the city. That is something that we take on. The necessity to pay PERS and TERS costs, or in our case, PERS costs in perpetuity affects the city. It affects not just this year's budget, it affects next year's budget, it affects the budget for 2050. So these are things that the city council needs to be made aware of. There is absolutely no doubt that the city needs to be able to pivot, I think was the term human resource used, to respond to changes in the marketplace, to respond to changes in the responsibilities of departments, and to respond to more effective management methods. There's no doubt about that. But those pivots don't happen overnight. To think that the administration brought forward what they did overnight, and brought it up at the agenda setting meeting and then approved it, that couldn't be farther from the case. This change resulted in many weeks and perhaps even many months of discussion about that. The city council should have been included in that discussion. It doesn't mean that they would decide yes or no at that point, but they should be included in the discussion because that affects that basic building block of the budget there. And to come forward at the last minute and say, well, this is what I have done, that is currently within the purview of the mayor to do that. Nobody holds that against her, but that is should not be the purview of the mayor. The mayor has a responsibility to work with the city council when it comes to the budget for the city of Wasilla, and that's what this is about. I know Chief Rapson came forward and said, you know, the WPDEA collective bargaining agreement, you know, may be affected by this. I don't think so, because this is adding new positions. This is not changing somebody from being a patrol officer to being a sergeant. This is not changing somebody from being a lieutenant in one functional position to being a lieutenant in another functional position. This is adding a new position to the police department in Chief Rapson's case. And in the case of what our human relations folks talked about, I don't see that that comment was once again valid, because this deals with new positions. This deals with changes to the basic fundamental building blocks of the city's budget. And so I don't see that either of those arguments hold water. As for our Public Works Director, Mr. Shaw, I have no objection to pushing this out and having more discussion. That's what the city council does. We discuss things. We make things happen based on discussion, not based on immediate things. But what we've got here is something that says that the mayor may not, as the chief administrative officer or the chief executive officer for the city, may not add positions without going through the budgetary process. And we amend the budget all the time. I mean, how many things do we have on the agenda tonight where we're amending the budget? That happens all the time. It's not a big deal, but it is the responsibility of the council, and it is the sole purview of the council to manage the budget. So therefore, if no one, if the council doesn't think that we need to push this out and discuss it some more, I'll be voting in favor of this. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Johnson?
Madam Mayor, and I want to thank the people who spoke in opposition to this. However, I'd like to read and reiterate point B, which says, no position shall be retitled or transferred to another department. To my knowledge, I've never known a police officer being transferred to MATCOM or Public Works to the police officer position, or any transferred in between there, just moving budget around, which is really the intent of this. I don't see that there is any restriction within a department for you to move people within existing job titles or roles or responsibilities. It doesn't say that because it's transferred between departments. So, which was the real root cause of what brought on our discussion to begin with, where you had a position over here in one department which had funding attached to it. We'll create a position, so theoretically our head count didn't change, but it's all of a sudden in another department. And that's what we're trying to get at, rather than how a specific department is managed internally, if that answers your questions. Thank you.
Nikki?
Madam Mayor, thank you. I am not in agreement with this new ordinance. I believe this would be overstepping with the council would be overstepping. Yes, we are in charge of the budget, approving the budget. We're not in charge of creating or retitling positions. That is left to the experts. That's why we have managers. That's why we have directors. That is their job. Our job is to approve the budget. To me, if a position is changed over, even to a new department, if the managers have worked together and that's what has been decided, the budget doesn't change, to me, it shouldn't affect us. We are not in the day-to-day department managers. That's why we hire experts. That's why we have departments. Can we retitle? I wouldn't know what to retitle a position. I am not the expert. No, we approve the budget. If you see a new position in a budget, question it, find out what's going on, but you can't say, no, you don't need that. We don't know. And I just think we're overstepping. Yes, I do, I believe that, Mr. Johnson, with my whole heart. We are in charge of approving the budget. We are not in charge of managing the day-to-day operations, telling them what the names of their positions should be. In the end, you want a new position, I think they should justify it, you know, because it's going to change the budget. We are in charge of that budget. Bring your justification. You know, we have 10,000 more residents than we did 10 years ago, so we do need more people to process this. You know, that's all understandable. For us to create, retitle, do all that, that is out of our scope. Give us the budget. We'll tell you yay or nay that we can afford you to have another position, and we'll go from there. So I would be voting against this.
Ms. Rubio?
Madam Mayor, from what we've kind of heard with testimony, I am in favor of postponing this, but I would really like Jess, I know she's online, to kind of chime in and help us. If we need more time on this, I think that she needs to review it, and so does administration with all the departments. So I would be in favor if we could get Jess to talk, if she's on there, I don't know.
I am here if you guys want me to break in. I wasn't sure. Is now a good time, or is there more discussion from council members? I don't mean to jump in the middle.
No, you're good.
Okay, great. Okay, so I would recommend postponement. I found out about the collective bargaining agreement language about 30 minutes ago. And I only have the WPD agreement in front of me because it was in your packet tonight. It is a really interesting provision to have in a CBA. I'm not your labor or employment attorney, so I'm gonna kind of leave it at that. I was surprised to see an agreement that impinges or limits the city's ability to legislate under certain circumstances. I haven't come across that before, but that may be something that Jennifer Alexander or Will Earnhardt are very familiar with. I'm not sure. So I would postpone so that the city can understand any exposure it's taking on and if there is any harm under the CBAs. I'm not going to opine on whether that harm or exposure exists right now just because I haven't had time with the agreements to know the exact impact of those provisions. That's about all I have on that development. I will say that there's a distinction between what the ordinance is trying to do as far as getting approval of creation of positions or transfer of positions versus budgetary issues. But I think what all of this raises is just that perhaps it hasn't been vetted through well enough to understand if everybody's in agreement about the impacts of the ordinance on those operations of the city. So that is it. There's a really bad echo on my side, so I'm hoping you guys could hear me okay. And just go here.
Thank you, Jess, appreciate that. So my vote, like I said, I would definitely be postponing this.
Madam Mayor. I want to say a couple things real quick to this one. I think if the attorney's idea is to postpone this just so we can flesh something out a little bit more, that's fine. But looking at this, from what I'm understanding, we have right in front of us, because it was handed out, thank you, Ms. Rubio, for requesting this, 7 times that a position was retitled or changed. And it came before the council in the form of a resolution, and the council had the opportunity to change it. This is not, the council is not the one creating, changing, retitling or anything. All we're doing is approving it or denying it if it's a significant change to the budget, just like we would do through the normal budgetary process. So, I mean, I think this is a great idea. Essentially, we found a time like Mr. Graham had found or mentioned where something happened that was a significant change to the budget in the council's eyes, and we said, hey, we need to codify this so this doesn't happen again. Essentially, that is what's happening here. And I think that these 7 examples right here are proof that this resolution, or this ordinance, excuse me, is needed, because it obviously shows this is how it's done. All we're doing is making sure that it is done this way in the future, because if there's a significant budget change, it's up to the council to make those decisions. So if the council's up for postponing, I'm okay with it, but if they want to pass it through, I'm perfectly okay with it. I think that's fine either way. Thank you.
So can I make a motion? I didn't know if Councilman Cottle wanted to talk.
No, go ahead.
So I do make a motion for, to postpone ordinance serial number 25-02 for amending Wasilla. Do I have to read the whole thing? Perfect.
Do we need a date certain?
Next regular meeting.
Next regular, okay.
Okay, the motion, is there a second?
Graham seconds.
The motion has been made by Councilman Rubio, seconded by Councilmember Graham to postpone ordinance serial number 25-02 until the next meeting. Is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passes. Okay, we are now on to persons to be heard. It's a time for members of the public to share their views with the council. This is not a question and answer period or a time for dialogue. Speakers may be referred to administration, or issues raised may be taken under advisement by the council or administration. First one up is Mr. Stearns.
Good evening. My name is Tom Stearns. I'm the Senior Ambassador for the Wasilla Area Seniors Incorporated. We have a closure coming up next month in February. On the 17th, it's President's Day. And we have just come through Christmas, and all our seniors got baskets and bags and stuff. And so everything went well there. Now we're into the new year, and we want to help you. And we're going to help you by the ABCs of dementia. You all have a packet there. If you follow along there, you'll see all the good things that I brought to you. So that's every Tuesday, tomorrow, and then through the 11th of February. And that's the first one. But then after that, we have on Valentine's Day, our Valentine's dance. Now, if you've ever been to a dance at Wasilla, you know it's lively, okay? You think seniors are just old crotchety folk. They're not. They get it together, and they're out there, and they're stepping out, and including our CEO. She'd be the first one up there. Next is our indoor yard sale. We're gonna have a yard sale on the 22nd and 29th of March. And it'll be from 9 to 4, and tables are available. You can read the little handout there. Next, we also have tax time is here. Isn't that fun? Everybody always looks forward to that. And everybody looks forward to coming to Wasilla to get their taxes done, because we do this every year. And so AARP will be out there and doing that for us. And then the last thing is some really good training, is the CERT training. It's free emergency preparedness training, and you can get all the details on the times and everything off this sheet. So it is, those are the things that are happening in Wasilla for the next couple of months. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Senator Wilson.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council members. My name is David Wilson, and I just want to reintroduce myself. I'm now the Policy Director for our Mat-Su Health Foundation. And as some of you guys know, Mat-Su Health Foundation owns ownership shares of the hospital, and within those profits, they give back to the community. It's the mission of the Mat-Su Health Foundation to improve the health and wellness of Alaskans living here in the Mat-Su, And they do this through grants, scholarships, partnerships with local organizations, with partnerships, collaborations, working with local and state government. And that's the work that we do to help improve residents. This is a very new position, so I'll be hanging out in your audience here to give another smiley face back to you guys, because I understand how difficult your jobs are, and sometimes it's nice to have another warm body here in the building to help things through. But I'm also here to help with collaboration partnerships. Is there things that the Matsu Health Foundation can do to help improve the health and wellness of residents here? I know the city has partnered with them before. We work with the borough and other community organizations like WASI here. And so feel free to reach out if we can ever provide any data assistance to help with your grants that you may do at the federal level, or partnerships or letters of support that we can help offer. Feel free to reach out to myself, and I can help you put you in the right touch with the right person to just better help our community out in Wasilla. So I know that we have a meeting here coming up with administration, and we're also more than welcome to meet with anyone here at the council to answer any questions or see other ways that we can partner. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, may I ask a question of Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
So, Mr. Wilson, we don't often see folks here from Matsu Health Foundation, so for kind of a basis, could you tell us who can be a member of Matsu Health Foundation? How do they become a member?
Yes, we currently have our open membership right now. Membership's only $5, and any member, any resident of the Matsu Borough can become a member of the Matsu Health Foundation for a $5 fee, annual fee.
Okay, thank you. So we will move on to, we'll close public participation, and we will move on to the consent agenda. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Jess, are you still on?
I am.
Okay, great. Sorry, I heard a beep. Okay. Regular meeting minutes, December 16th, 2024. Special meeting minutes, December 17th. And December 17, 2024. January 9th, 2025. And regular meeting minutes, January 13, 2025. Our introduction was moved to new business. We have one resolution under the consent agenda. It's resolution serial number 2509. Sorry, that was me. Authorizing the transfer of funds within an accounting fund in the amount of $53,044 from the Robert Street Extension Fund to the City Paving Fund for the purpose of reimbursing the paving program.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
Madam Mayor, I move the consent agenda as read.
Is there a second?
Second, Councilman Johnson.
It's been moved by Councilmember Crafton and seconded by Councilmember Johnson to approve the consent agenda as read. Is there objection to the motion?
Madam Mayor? Yes. No, not objection. Sorry, I wanted to talk.
Oh.
I'll just step back. Too fast.
You can't talk now.
Long bit.
Hearing none, the motion is approved. We are now at unfinished business. There is no unfinished business. We are at new business. Madam Clerk.
Okay, thank you. Council, do you want me to start with introduction and move down, or do you want to take the resolution first?
Top down.
Top down?
Yeah.
So start with the introduction? Okay. So to new business, our first item, this is an introduction recommended for public hearing February 10th, 2025. It's ordinance serial number 2503, amending Wasilla Municipal Code 204020, qualification of council members, and Wasilla Municipal Code 216030, qualification of mayor, to prohibit holding certain public offices simultaneously.
Okay, is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move ordinance serial number 2503.
Is that introduction for public hearings?
Madam Mayor, I move ordinance serial number 2503, introduction for public hearing.
Okay. Is there a second?
Madam Mayor, I'll second the motion.
It's been moved by Councilmember Graham and seconded by Councilmember Crafton to move ordinance serial number 25-03 for introduction. Is there discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Johnson?
I understand what it is that we're trying to do, and I'm not really opposed to it. I'm just questioning why we're doing it.
Because,
Ask the sponsor, maybe?
who is the sponsor?
You want me to go or you want to go?
I was talking without mine.
If I could, Madam Mayor, respond to Mr. Johnson. This was I think it's more of just a cleaning up here is what we're seeing. I've heard of people trying to move around and hold dual offices, so this is, basically the intent is to make sure that this doesn't happen. We found out that this wasn't codified, and we didn't think there should be any opportunity for somebody to have dual offices. And so essentially that's what we're doing, is just codifying, making sure this doesn't happen. There should be no reason why anybody is holding two duly elected offices like this. Is there anything I missed?
Madam Mayor.
Ms. Rubio?
So I do agree with Ian, we are on the same page with that. So it's not a problem, but it could be. We all know that our focus needs to be on one thing and not multiple things, where we start crossfires and might be siding on one thing or the other for the wrong one that you're on. So we just want to make sure that we clarify this, codify it, make sure that it's good to go.
Is there further discussion?
Madam Mayor, Mr. Graham had pulled this. I was curious why he had pulled it.
I just wanted to have that exact, I don't know what you to call it, a discussion, but just a definition of what's going on here. But I'm in full agreement with it.
Okay, further discussion? Mr. Johnson?
Madam Mayor and Council, after listening to the reasoning, I understand the concern, but I just sort of am opposed to just adding ordinances for no particular reason, in that right now we have conflict of interest. And if I attempt to hold a public office, say, in the borough, and while holding public office in the city of Wasilla, that is probably one of the classic cases of being conflict of interest. So I mean, I see some unnecessary things in here, and yet I don't really see any reason why somebody couldn't be part of a school board, because that's really not part of the jurisdiction of the city of Wasilla. I mean, that's, you know, as I said, I'm ambivalent towards it right now, but I see the ethics as really being the primary reason not to do it, and we already have ethics laws in place. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I could respond to that.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. And Jamie, you can correct me on the conversations we have around this, but if I was correct, the oath of office and the conflict of interest actually doesn't prohibit you. While you're not wrong, morally speaking, I would hope somebody wouldn't do this. You're correct. The concern we had was that technically speaking, somebody could, let's say they did, and the only time it would be a problem is if you had to vote on something that conflicted with the other office. All you would have to do is recuse yourself from the vote. I don't think you should be holding duly elected offices, period. Because again, that to me it's a conflict of interest on all levels. Again, just what Ms. Rubio said as well is, granted, this is not a full-time position, but you still dedicate time to this. And if you're going to hold another elected office, what happens if meetings cross? How do you decide which meeting to go to? Or you have conflict of events happening. To me, I think it's just best that we clarify that if you're going to be a council member here or the mayor of Wasilla, we want your time dedicated to benefiting the city of Wasilla and furthering the city of Wasilla's goals, and not any other body, whether that be the borough or state level, or I think even federal level office as well in here. That's, again, the intent behind why we're going for this. Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Ms.
And it
Villar?
als- It also goes on to say the Wasilla Municipal Code 4.12.030 specifies that a person cannot seek election to more than one city office at the same time. This means an individual cannot run for both mayor and council or for two different city council seats concurrently. So if you have someone who's on the council, this tells me that if someone's on the council right now and their term is up at the next election cycle, and the mayor's term is up on the next election cycle, and there's a person who is on the city council right now who wants to run for mayor, but if they didn't get mayor, they'd still like to be on the council, so they would want to keep their seat on the council. Is that making any sense? Okay.
Can't do that.
No, that's what I'm
Yes.
saying. So this is saying, so it's not just holding dual positions. It's actually you can't run for more than one office and then just pick the one you want at
Correct.
the end,
If I may.
right?
Yes.
So you're absolutely,
It's kind of twofold then, this ordinance.
well, the
Right.
second section is already in
It
code.
is already.
And what that means is during candidate filing, as an example, I'm just gonna pick seats E and F are up. You can't run for both.
Right. But
You
if
have to
mayor
pick.
is up and your
So the
seat,
mayor's up in
and you know, if you don't get mayor, you'll take seat.
26.
But-
So in 26, you can't run for mayor and council.
Right.
You
So if your
pick what
seat's
you
up,
wanna
you
run
got,
for.
you're gonna have to choose.
In
which
26.
one. Got it,
Mhm.
yeah, okay.
Does
thank
that make
you.
sense?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And also, while it does specify, that you can't run for both mayor and council, can't run for two city offices at one time, I think part of the philosophy behind this is you don't want to run to be on the city council and the borough assembly at the same time. Well, and if I win the borough assembly, I just won't fill the council seat and there'll be a special election or an appointment to make that work. But I think this kind of spells that out a little bit, but if the code doesn't already say that you can't run for multiple elected offices, not just city offices at the same time, perhaps that should be included.
If I may. I don't think this section says what you're changing, it says you may not serve. So Jess, you can chime in. I don't think this prohibits you from running, but if you are elected to the city council and you are elected to the borough assembly, or you already hold that seat, you can't hold both offices at the same time. Is that what you were saying? You agree?
Right, and at this
Okay.
point, it really doesn't matter because our election is in October, and the borough's election is in November. But I don't know if it would help to clarify that or not. If you want to represent people in the city, represent people in the city. If you want to represent people in the borough, represent people in the borough. But
Yeah, I just, if I can share with the group, this has come up many times before. This is not new. It's a question I've been asked as clerk. I have an attorney opinion, if you want the truth, that's probably 20 years old, that talks about prohibitions on dual office holding, or at least this theory that kind of the centralization of power. And Jess, you can chime in, I'm not an attorney. And so, at least from my perspective, this just clarifies things. It's provisions many municipalities have on the books. But, I mean, it's ultimately council decision. I don't have one way or the other, whatever you decide. But we are on introduction. So if we want me to, is there any objection to the introduction of this? We'll set for public hearing and then more discussion, more questions, and we'll have our city attorney here. So we're good with introduction? Yep, okay.
Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So next would be AM number 2502, approval of goals and initiatives for fiscal year 2026.
Is there a motion to approve Resolution serial number 2506.
Madam Mayor, I believe it's 2502.
Oh, sorry.
And in that spirit, I move AM number 2502.
Okay. Is there a second?
Madam Mayor, Cottle seconds.
The motion has been made by Councilmember Graham and seconded by Councilmember Cottle to approve resolution serial number 25-02 for introduction.
No.
Oh, for approval, sorry. That's okay. I've lost my place in life. Is there discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Graham?
Thank you. Madam Mayor, the reason I pulled this is, this year we've done things considerably differently than we have in the previous years. And while we did spend quite a bit of time talking about these as we went through, we typically didn't go back, after we looked at goals 1 and 2, then we went to goals 3 and 4, and then went to goals 5. We didn't typically go back and look at things. So just a quick review of things. On the page 1, the printed page 1, which talks about mission and goals. I don't know what it is on the iPad.
46.
But it's 46 on the printed page here. So that talks about long-range goals and budgeted initiatives for FY 2026. The second sentence down there says these goals are revisited annually and guide the development of the city's budget initiatives. So for someone to just be reading this, they would think that these goals have been carried forward from year to year, which was not the case. This is a new process. Some of the goals are the same, but does it make any difference? Maybe not, but I think that the more correct wording there would be these goals will be revisited annually, as opposed to these goals are revisited annually, because that kind of assumes that we had these same goals in the past and moved forward from there. And then also on the next page, page 47, goal 1, number 4, allocate funding to do a feasibility study for the potential growth or expansion of the Menard Center. I'm kind of, that one still makes me nervous. It made me nervous during the meetings. I don't think the goal is to expand the Menard Center. The goal of the study should be to find out if there's a need to expand the Menard Center, and then if there is, then perhaps identify some options there. But if we go forward with the goal of expanding the Menard Center, I don't think that's necessarily what the market is calling for. If the market's calling for it, then by God, let's do it. But if the market isn't doing that, and if the private sector is picking up some of that slack, then, and I shouldn't say slack, but if the private sector is picking up some of that need, then we should certainly encourage the private sector to do so. The Menard Center is a great asset for us here in the city. We went out on a limb to establish that many years ago, and we fund it pretty generously, and it has great returns to the city. But I don't, I just want to make sure that we're kind of doing a market study before we're deciding to make things move forward.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Mr. Graham, can I jump in real quick here?
Sure.
So it doesn't sound like you're opposed to the study. It's more so you don't want the study to be specifically geared to saying we're going to expand the Menard Center.
Right,
Is that what I'm understanding?
Because this talks about the potential
Right.
growth of the Menard Center.
And
So as opposed to the potential growth of the recreation services, whatever.
Correct.
Industry, so to speak.
And I think maybe the word expansion, I see where you're seeing it could be considered that we're looking to expand the building specifically. Maybe that is what we need, not saying we do, not saying we don't. To me, the feasibility is kind of the discussion in that. Is there a different wording you want in there just to, it sounds like to make it feel a little bit more
I just think as long as I get it on record that what we're trying to do is
Right.
determine, is there a need?
Right.
Before we determine, is there a way?
And that was, because I was the one that asked for this to be added here. That was the intent behind that, is to to assess, is there a need for whether any type of growth in it or expansion of the facilities in any shape or form is.
And now it's been said, it's on the record. I think we're
Perfect.
good.
No. For something this important, I would ask for an amendment, because this is the guiding document.
Okay, so if
So
I
the
could
minutes
continue,
aren't
then
gonna
maybe we could.
correlate.
Yep,
Yeah.
there might be more amendments
Mr. Graham,
needed, so.
may I,
Of
first
course.
of all, is there any objection? If you would like to make a motion on page 1, page 46 of the packet, you're going to strike the word "are" and add "will be."
Yes,
Sure.
ma'am.
Madam Mayor?
Rubio seconds.
Okay. That would be amendment number 1.
Okay, is there objection to amendment number 1?
Hearing none.
Madam Mayor, I think the existing wording is perfectly acceptable because I'm going to read several words in here to do a feasibility study. In other words,
We're
I,
talking about this one,
Page 1.
page 46.
oh, page 100.
Yeah,
Okay, no objection.
I've-
no objections. Okay, now we are on to,
We're going to take an at ease, is that correct, Mr. Graham?
No, I think we can move on here. I'll go to amendment number 2, which is goal 1, line 4. After the word "study for the," we would add the phrase "need" and methods for, and then continue with potential growth or expansion of our sports center.
Madam Mayor, I'll second the motion.
okay. Is there a, Mr. Johnson?
I'm not opposed to it, although I don't see the need for it.
Okay.
Is there objection to the amendment number 2? Hearing none,
Is there objection to the opinion as amended?
and is there objection to the amendment 25-02
I'm
as
still,
amended?
I'm still working on that, Madam Mayor, if I could go through a couple other items here. Is that okay, Madam Clerk? So, one thing here, which I think may just be a Scribner's error, on goal 2, number 2, the last 2 sentences, the last sentence is a phrase. Is it supposed to be attached to that second to last sentence, following the best cost-effective practices and leveraging an ERP system? There's something missing there. The last sentence currently reads leveraging an ERP system. That is not a sentence, that's a
Correct.
phrase.
Yeah, I agree, so.
And I don't know if that's just a Scribner's error or could,
I feel like the word by leveraging an enterprise resource planning system. I feel like the word by should be there, BY. Remove the period.
Drop the.
what do we need there, Madam Clerk, in your opinion?
I think it's up to the council. I mean, we have, you just funded an ERP system.
Right.
So it's in place, so maybe just strike that completely. You are leveraging it.
Yeah, you've already leveraged.
So, Madam Mayor, I move to delete the last sentence of goal 2 line, or goal 2.2, however word.
Okay, is there a second?
Rubio seconds.
The motion's been made and seconded. Is there objection to the motion on amendment number 3? Hearing none?
So, Madam Mayor, moving on to goal number 4, couple of things here. 4.1, or the first sub-bullet there, develop a conceptual plan and funding sources for possible upgrades or relocation of City Hall. I think I'll just leave that one be for now because there's more important stuff here. But on goal 4.5, continue to improve local roads until all roads are paved, enhancing connectivity and accessibility within the community. While that is certainly an admirable goal, part of that goal needs to maintain the safety and traffic management of the system that we have, and I think that needs to be added on there. So I would move to amend 4.5 at the end of the current sentence to add, while maintaining and enhancing safety and traffic management for those roads.
While maintaining and what?
Enhancing safety and traffic management.
Is there a second?
Madam Mayor, I'll second that.
The motion's been made by Mr. Graham, seconded by Mr. Crafton. Is there objection to the motion?
Can I reread that, Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Just so we're all, so goal 4, number 5, continue to improve local roads until all roads are paved, enhancing connectivity and accessibility within the community while maintaining and ensuring safety and traffic management for those roads.
That is correct.
Thank you, sir.
And the reason I added that is, I know Mr. Johnson has talked several times about, speed control, not necessarily speed control, but trying to reduce speeds on we have a lot of straight line roads out here, and a lot of them turn into raceways, particularly at near school start time and during the rush hours. So I think we need, if we include that phrase in there, it allows us the ability to talk more about those safety issues. And as we pave roads, if we're on dead end roads, and the residents don't want to change to a thoroughfare, then we should certainly respect that as well, the traffic management that brought them there. So that was my philosophy behind that.
Is there a second? Oh, sorry. I missed that. Crafton seconded. Is there objection to the motion? Hearing none.
And that completes my diatribe. Thank you.
Okay, now we are voting on AM number 25-02. Is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion passes. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. So then I'm guessing I'm going to skip on to the IM number 2501. That was also pulled. Update on Wasilla Water System Cross Connection Control or Backflow Preventer Reporting System.
Eric?
Move for discussion.
Yes.
Is there a second?
0 seconds.
Madam Mayor, since I pulled this, if I could speak first, I'd appreciate it before Public Works speaks.
Okay.
Thank you. So, Eric, the reason I pulled this is because of the conversation with a couple of businesses that have received our letter, the middle of the month, saying, hey, you may or may not have this backflow thing, backflow prevention valve or valves in your facility. Number one, we need to know if you've got them, and number two, you need to test them. You being the owner of the property. I fully agree that we should know if those backflow prevention devices are there. However, I think unless there's a reason that the city thinks that they're not functioning properly, that this creates kind of an undue burden on the property owners financially. I know one of the property owners told me that they had already contacted an engineer regarding this after getting your letter, and were told that it could be $10,000 if they were not functioning properly. But it would be at least $1,000 for them to do the testing. The city's not rich by any stretch of the imagination, but we do have pretty significant reserves. I would think it would be appropriate if there is no indication that the valves are not functioning properly, that the city could do the testing. If there is indication that they're not functioning properly, then that would transfer to the property owner. But anyway, that's the reason that I pulled this, so thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, thank you for that concern. I'm sure that our letter surprised some businesses out there. The back information on this is that it's been in our code for decades, that it is required and that it is the owner's responsibility to test it. What we've seen in practice is that the only ones that are actually tested are when they're involved with the fire department. The fire department requires yearly testing, and that comes from state and federal law. What this program helps us do is have the records we're supposed to have. We had an EPA inspection, and they said, do you require testing? And we said, yes, we do. And they said, do you have any records of those tests? And we said, no, we don't. We've never had the staff or the time to set it up, is what I've been told historically. So while an entity that has never tested before will see it as a new cost, it is required for us, the city, to maintain the certification as a public water system to limit exposure liability-wise and repercussions from both the EPA and DEC. As to the cost of testing, we included a list of, I think it's 27 contractors that are certified to do that testing. So they have a vast market to work with if they need to find a tester. There is some risk to some property owners that never install the backflow preventer that now need to install that. And at this point, that burden is on that customer that wants to still remain receiving city water because of what our code says and what the law says about the protection of our water system. We haven't had any calls with that number stated. We've had, we've already seen testing that has happened because of the fire marshal requirement. They just re-enter the information, so we're starting to see that data come in. We have taken about 7 customers off the list because they don't need it, they don't have it, so that we were able to walk them through the process and say, yep, you don't need to, and they're not on the list anymore, and they have no testing requirements. And it's helping us get that yearly data that we need to have to be compliant.
So it's, if I may, so it's my understanding that it is to the advantage of both the city and the property owner to have this testing done, and the fact that the city hasn't maintained any record of these tests, and property owners probably don't realize that they needed to have the test since we didn't have code compliance out knocking on doors or whatever. How many of these letters did we send out? And if there, and if we were to, split the testing cost, assuming it's $500 per property, and what would we be looking at as a cost to the city for helping absorb that cost, or at least some of that cost for a totally unexpected cost to the property owner?
So we sent out 269 of the letters. We've removed about 7 customers from the list, so we're operating about 272 at this point. So I don't have an average cost, but it'd be whatever you want to use an average cost times 272 to the city if we had some cost sharing with them. At this point, I'm sure we'll work through more. I'm sure there'll be a few more that come in that don't need to be tested because they show us that their use is a bathroom, and that doesn't usually require backflow preventer, so.
Here we go. So I'm just understanding this. So as the city, when someone hooks up to our water or existing, does the city not maintain that water line?
We maintain, so if you build when you build a new facility, if we use the credit union that just was built across the street over there, they apply for a utility connection, and they will submit their plans, and we review it and say, yep, we agree to that. There's an inspection period where we inspect their system up to basically standpipe inside the building. The ownership from the street corporation back to the building remains the customers. They've installed it. We will own and maintain the system back to the main line. But because we have to maintain security of the water system, basically, our code allows us to dictate that they have this backflow preventer, for instance. If they have a fire system, and interestingly, the reason the fire department wants to know if the backflow preventer works is because they're concerned that it would limit fire flow. So the test is showing that the fire department is comfortable that there's enough water to the sprinklers or whatever the fire system is. And we need to know that it works to prevent back contamination in the system. There are other users, such as mortuaries that use chemicals that could impact our water system. We need to have that protected for health and safety. The soda machines at restaurants, those need to be protected because they can leach copper out of the plumbing, and all of this comes out of plumbing code from seeing bad things happen, like Flint, Michigan, and other places like that. So there are nuances that are explained in the letter, and we add more information on what we're looking for so that we can ensure the safety of our water and not get in trouble with the regulators.
So Madam Mayor, a couple of questions if I can. The backflow, is it on our side or theirs?
It's on their side.
So existing residents, let's say they've been here as a resident in our community for 20 years, which is probably pushing 30 or 40, right? We are pushing, as a city, this cost onto them?
Not to residents, it has to do with the use of the building. So if you had a building if you had a small building that just had some bathrooms, that's not a use that requires a backflow preventer. If you have a building that's large enough through fire code that it has to have a fire system, then that requires a backflow preventer. And in that example, it has to do with the fact that the water in the fire system is stagnant and you start to have black water created. I don't know if anyone saw what happened to the Palmer Library when the roof collapsed, but half the mess was because the fire system dumped its stagnant water in it. It smells bad. It's not good. We do not want fire systems going off regularly because it damages things in buildings. But anyway, so there are also buildings that have exterior fire systems, and if they're not dry, they have glycol in them, and so you have to have backflow preventers so that we don't have antifreeze entering the system. So for residents, very few would ever be affected by this. And so our list of 269 businesses or users that we know, for whatever reason, because of the size of the building, because it's a mortuary, because of maybe industry. There's a company that's on their own well water, but is a sewer customer off of Old Mac, kind of by the bingo hall. They were on our list, and then they said, no, we're on our own well, so they were removed from the list because while their industry would definitely require a backflow preventer, they're not on the system. So we had to cast a wide net so that we could talk to them and then remove them when it was logical.
Madam Mayor. I'd have to agree kind of with Councilman Graham. As a business owner myself in the city, born and raised here, I don't think the city should push something that is required on our end, whether that be the fire code, whether that be the city to maintain that, to keep our water clean, onto these businesses. I feel like that we can do better, and it's the city of Wasilla, we should do better. Let Palmer have their own issues. I don't like that you brought that up. We're in the city of Wasilla.
It was an example of damage.
The
to a
issue
fire
is
system.
here with our city, and I want our city to do better. And so if that means we need to come with an agreement that maybe, like Graham says, hey, we have 200, I think you took 7 off there, maybe 263, maybe some more of those won't have to. If we can come to an agreement with these businesses, I feel like they would like to stay in the city and not take on this weight of something that is required by the city. I just don't feel easy with the way that we're doing this.
Madam
Madam Mayor?
Nikki?
I just had a question, because I don't understand it fully, but is this for the customer's benefit, for their building's benefit, if there is an issue? Or is this something that we really need on our end to make our system work correctly? Or is this for the customer's benefit for?
It is for the public's benefit to be protected from accidental contamination from one user into the rest of the system. So if you consider a building that has glycol in it so that the exterior structure is protected, if that glycol enters the system, we have now impacted all of the water users. And so it's much like how we don't use our wells that have high arsenic because it exceeds limits. This is also a health and safety protection so that we do not have contaminants entering back into the system. And so these laws, both through the federal and the state, have come because people have been harmed in the past when historically there weren't the cross-connection protections that were required.
So it's actually protecting the public and the water system, and
That's
them
correct.
too.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Mr. Johnson?
And Eric, I know this is just a note at this point, because I'm not really proposing a change, but I think right now in the city of Wasilla, the whole point of the backflow thing is to prevent our risk to our citizens. My experience in other communities is that they do not allow backflow valves at all, which means that the systems have to be totally disconnected from the water so that there can be no backflow. So if you have a secondary water source, it is impossible to go into the city water system because there is no interconnection possible. And, I think this to be a much more reasonable approach. What we're allowing the backflow things right now, so I really don't want to take and push the risk onto the city. All it would take is one customer that decides he's going to run his own water pump, and he drills it down and he's running at 50 PSI and he's supplying his neighbor with arsenic water. Okay, yeah, just so that he doesn't have to pay the water bill. Okay, well, that's great, but boy, you put everybody else at risk in the city. So my 2 cents is we're being very generous to even allow these valves at all. Other cities don't allow it at all.
Well, maybe I can correct you. So city code requires that if you can connect to city water, you should. And the benefit that having city water provides is that, especially for businesses, they need that fire water service. So it is extremely expensive to provide your own fire system when you can connect to a city system. So what it does is it serves as a one-way valve so that if there's a negative pressure event, water from within that facility cannot be drawn back into the service. So we don't really see any issues where people have a well and have city water, because we also don't allow that in other parts of code. So if you're on city water, you're on city water the whole way. But if you're doing something in that facility that has the risk for contamination, or if you have a system that is going to create contamination naturally, like a fire system, code requires that it be separated so that it cannot go backwards and affect the neighbor downstream. One of the interesting things I learned about was that, especially like in, if we use fast food chains as an example, they have their soda fountains. Those soda fountains are stainless steel, and they don't, the CO2 system doesn't leach anything out of stainless steel. If there's no backflow preventer at that interface, that CO2 creates carbonic acid in the water, and it will leach copper out of that pipe. And so then you're creating this highly concentrated copper water that will go back into the system. And they've seen in restaurants like blue water coming out of taps nearby the soda fountain. So that's a visual example of backflow that we are trying to prevent. And so this coordination with these owners as we go through and build the permanent list will provide us with that record that we're supposed to have to show that we're trying to protect the community through all connections that we know about.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm on board with Mr. Graham and Ms. Ruby are with this one here. I feel like we are starting to push a little bit of an undue burden on our business owners. Now, I understand why the backflow is on the owner of the property, because we're saying, hey, we'll give you public water, but because we don't have control over what you're doing inside your building with the water we're providing you or what you're doing in there, we need to prevent you from flowing anything back into our system. That's my understanding as to why the backflow preventer is on the property owner and not on the city at that point. But with that being said, it sounds like we've done a little bit of a poor job making sure all of these backflow preventers are being tested regularly.
That has
Now,
not happened yet.
it sounds like we've already identified some probably don't need to be tested. My guess is like credit union, for example. They're so brand new, we know they don't need to be tested. You know, you can look at maybe Midas up on the hill over by Home Depot. They're fairly new. They might not need to be tested. And we're probably going to find more that we're going to whittle down here. But what I would probably like to see is, and I know we're obviously already on a clock because we've given them a timeline here, of finding a way that we can work with them and like we've already said, maybe split the cost. I mean, again, depending on how many come back here, if it's $1,000 a pop, I might say, hey, we'll pay for it this time, but you're now aware that this is up to date, it's working condition, etc. From now on, it's on you at this point. And if you fail to, you've been given notice. But what it sounds like here is we're trying to update our logs and basically bring ourselves up to standard, which we should, which is great. But we've put now, with doing that, we've created a little bit of an undue burden onto some of these people. So I don't know if a motion would be needed, Mayor or Clerk, to say that's what I would like to see happen at that point, or how would we handle that?
I think people want to talk.
But I'm just saying, that's when we get there, then.
Madam Mayor.
This
Mr.
is Jess.
Clifton
I
had-
could break in it.
Jen,
Yes.
go ahead.
I just wanted to throw out there that as long as you're looking to find solutions as far as the cost that's being allocated between the parties, it would be great to also provide you a little bit more legal background. I worked on the ordinance with Eric when I think it was almost a year ago, I could be wrong, to put this in place. And there really is a series of kind of legal obligations and exposure associated with municipal utilities that you don't want to start interfering with by creating some assumption that the city should be carrying some of this risk, because it's not really tolerable on an ongoing basis. So I just want to separate the cost issue, whatever is happening with how much this is costing folks and the concern that council may have about that, versus the legal obligation and where the obligation for utility services falls. I think I can provide some clarity that might be helpful as you guys move forward. I just wanted to throw that out there while you're talking about it.
Madam Mayor?
Kathy?
I'm unfortunately or fortunate, I'm not sure which one, but I'm very familiar with backflow preventer valves. After running a large hotel on city water that we had to replace the backflow preventer valve. And when you don't replace them and they need it, it will eventually cause you other problems. They fought problems for years in my hotel, and I finally brought somebody in and said, go check that. I was the jack of all trades and master at none, at least I had some knowledge in that end of it. The onerous on having a backflow preventer valve tested and replaced if it's faulty is on the building owner. But this isn't something that the city has stayed up with, whether it's just because of time, manpower, for whatever reason, it really doesn't matter. I myself would like us to look at, investigate, to bring people up to code that may need it, to possibly do a cost-sharing program with them to help these business owners, because it is a huge expense. But the caveat of not taking care of these things can be very detrimental.
Well, I can tell you that for 40 years, every beauty shop in this borough had backflow preventers. and we paid for them.
Madam Mayor. So, it's nice to know that the beauty industry did that, and they probably had some sort of support and guidance from the beauty industry saying, hey, you need to do this. This is important. You've got to do
No,
that.
the health department said that.
And health department, you bet.
DEC.
So in this case, the backflow preventer valves are applicable only to businesses, and only to businesses that are hooked up to city water. It has nothing to do with sewer, but it has to do with city water. And it currently said you sent out 270 letters. You know, my concern is, you know, much like earlier I spoke about the budget. I mean, you kind of do things. I mean, this is an unbudgeted expense to the owners of the businesses. So in the spirit which Mr. Crafton mentioned, I mean, I would like to see the council come up with the will of the council that you come back with a program that would allocate or request $300,000 from the city budget to be able to reimburse business owners that are required to do that backflow valve inspection up to $250 per valve that is inspected. And that would be managed by the city, and it would be specifically mentioned in whatever program you put forward that this is a one-time assistance, and that the code does require an annual inspection and so on and so forth. So there's an education piece to that, as well as using you know, some of the city's fund balance, which is considerable and could absorb $300,000 without any major impact, or without essentially any impact to city operations other than finance having to figure out how to, you know, how to reimburse these folks. But if the council were to come up with a will of the council that you bring something back, I would support that. I just don't think if we're going to put together a resolution to try and make that happen, you know, then we're looking at a, you know, months-long process to get there, and it doesn't sound like we have months. I don't see the end of this. The owners didn't show me the letter that said, hey, by the 15th of March or whatever, get this done. I don't know what the timeline is on that, but anyway, just for the council's edification, I'd like to see something like that where the city absorbs some of that initial cost of the inspection. If you have a valve on your property and it failed, obviously it's your responsibility to replace that valve. But since you were probably unaware of the need to have the inspection and probably didn't have that in your, you know, operating expenses for the year, I think initially the city could do that, but specify that it's one time, and if future councils want to do it again, that would be up to them. But I would certainly support a one-time thing, since this is something new for the city to be keeping track of. Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Jess, can they direct administration or finance to do this without people to administer this? Because we don't have, you know, we don't have enough people to do this without it really putting a burden on the finance department.
So I think council can try to create I'm sorry, you guys, there's a ton of feedback and I can't hear myself very well, so I'm sorry if I'm sounding strange on your end. Council can move to set forth some kind of reimbursement program related to this. I don't know what it would do to resources, and that would be something that administration would need to come back and talk about with council, but there's no bar on them creating such a program based on resources in the administration.
Thank you.
Madam
Yep.
Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Sorry, this question might go to the attorney, might go to just a food for thought thing. Is there any way that we could just pay a portion of the invoice instead of it being reimbursement, if that's possible? With that way they're just we have record. Hey, here's the invoice. I paid, you know, X amount of dollars. Here's what's left over. This is the city's portion. So just a thought. I don't know if that might make it easier, or if it's possible in any way, shape, or form.
I think that goes to kind of an accounting trick and how you were to set up the program, but it does seem that there would be a way that would be easier as opposed to having to cut checks back to people and that kind of thing. I would want to think really hard about the utility piece. That's kind of why I piped up earlier, and just exactly what the parameters are of what Eric can do in this. And I would not suggest that it cannot be done. I think it can be done, but there are some considerations given the overlay that Eric's referenced of federal and state law here, just to make sure that we're doing it in a way that makes sense in the context of all the laws that apply to municipal utilities.
Madam Mayor. So question to Eric, who maintains these backflow devices?
As in contractors or the ownership?
As in a routine base of a running log of, how do we know one's bad? How do we not know?
Oh, yeah.
Who's going to maintain all this?
Yeah, so the, let me think through that answer. So they're a mechanical device that have settings. And so there are several ways that you can become a certified tester. And so you learn the process on how they work, and then you learn what the ports do and what the calibration knobs do. And so you have a procedure that you test it, and you say, is it within specs? Because the manufacturer says it should open and close at certain PSIs. How fast should it do that? And you can verify that it's continuing to meet those specs. And then there is some, repair that you can make. So if a spring or a seal fails, you can open it up and replace that. Worst case scenario, something has happened to it, it got damaged or something, it has to be replaced. You buy a new one and you put it back in, and then you test it again and say, yep, it's right, and it's signed off on that. So the state and federal say, it needs to be signed off by a certified tester, and we have more than 20 plumbing and heating and fire companies within the Valley and Anchorage that are certified to do that. So Market has those people, and if you have a system that isn't too old, as Councilman Cottle talked about, they do wear out over time, but it's usually just a routine test and maybe a modification, a tightening of spring or something, or even replacing it, and it's back in operation and they sign off on it.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. I think maybe I asked it wrong in the sense of who's going to, from the city, know when one of those are not operating at its potential?
Oh, that's where the yearly testing comes in. So the EPA and the EC say, because they are mechanical, because they can fail, because they're so important, they must be tested and certified yearly. So the idea is that if they find one that failed, at least they caught it within a year of its failure, and then it's repaired and back in service.
Do they report that to us?
Correct.
That's what I'm asking.
Through the system. So they will say, it failed, and if they fixed it, they say, we fixed it and it's back online. Or they say it's failed and it's not fixed. And then if that owner says, I'm not fixing it, then we have to start talking about enforcement of a failed device and still being connected to the system.
Madam Mayor. Sorry, just for clarification, I think maybe to help Ms. Rubio here, that's what this company that we've contracted with, Backflow Solutions, Inc. So they're basically the customers reporting it to them, they're reporting it to us.
Correct.
That's the
Yeah, we have a
the
portal
chain of-
that shows how many we've tested or how many have been tested and what the count is and who they are and what it is. So we have all the records we need to have to show the EPA that we know what's out there and we know that they're on a rotational retest.
Eric, is the $1,000 a yearly charge?
I don't have a record on how much the inspections cost. My understanding is they're not that much. So
Okay.
it's several $100s per year to have a technician come out and retest your backflow.
Madam Mayor, just kind of for information, several businesses that I manage in Anchorage, we were required by the municipality of Anchorage to have our backflow preventer valves tested every year. We got a reminder letter from the Muni every year. We had to have them tested. We had to have the company send in the test results. That cost was totally on the businesses. Yeah, the Muni didn't help at all. It's just, you're gonna do it or you're gonna get fined. And that was just cut and dried, and that's just the way it is in most places.
But it's a one once a year
Once a
test,
year, correct.
right? Okay, let's say it is $1,000 a year. That's only $83.33 a month. So as far as that, I don't see the burden on the business, but now that's just my opinion.
Madam Mayor. I agree with you on that. That is something, you know, when you hook up on city water, city sewer, you inquire those costs and you know what those are. But this is something that the city has failed and has not enforced. And therefore, we are doing business the wrong way, and now we're trying to fix it. We need to make it right.
Madam Mayor, this might be to our clerk here. Mr. Graham had kind of brought forward something that he wanted to see forward. I mean, did he need a second or anything for what he was asking at this point? Because, I mean, I like what you're saying,
I haven't asked for anything yet. I wanted to have this discussion with the council, and then I can bring something forward, but I wanted to hear what everybody had to say before I brought something forward, and I just brought forward a off-the-cuff proposal, so to speak.
It might be worth it to us. Could we call a couple of these companies and find out what their average costs would be, and then take that number and say, if it's low enough number, hey, we'll just pay for it all? Because what'd you say, $250 or $350 is what you were capping out at?
Yeah, my recommendation was, or my initial discussion was $250 per valve inspected. Many businesses have multiple buildings on their property, and many of those businesses, each building has its own backflow preventer, because, I mean, you may have an auto shop that's doing painting in one building and doing, you know, something else in another building, and they don't want, you know, when one building, the backflow preventer fails, they don't want to shut down the whole business. They just want to shut down that building so they can get that backflow preventer installed within a couple days or a week or whatever and continue on. So, but yeah, my suggestion was $250, and one of the businesses that I talked to, they told me they were quoted $400 per valve for the inspection. But that was just one business from one contractor, so God only knows what it really is. So.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a information memorandum. We have nothing on the table at the current time. We have a long discussion here with everybody throwing out numbers from 300,000 to $40, to 400 to whatever. We have no real information as to what's going on here. My suggestion is we open up discussion at next city council. If there is a resolution that could be made at that particular time with some real data, that would be really helpful for us to continue the discussion in a more intelligent fashion. I do agree that maybe something could be done, whether it's the total city's responsibility. I'm more into the camp where it's the businesses, but I do also understand the fact that since we haven't done anything in a long time, maybe we've got a piece in it. But I suggest that we come back then next council meeting with some real data and maybe a resolution. Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Just a question with Eric. So Eric, do you think we have messed up? Do you think we weren't notifying every year like we should have? What do you think the extent is of our failings?
Yeah, as a water purveyor, we should have found resources to have this testing protocol that needs to happen. We're relying on the fire marshal for that review. So this is something that hadn't been dealt with, and we need to deal with it. I think I'm hearing the council's support to be generous to these, newly discovered backflow prevention requirements. So if it's the mayor's direction, I'd be happy to put together some numbers so you can see what we forecast the support could be, and then the details could be discussed later on and see what the budget is. And so I think it's great, very supportive. I didn't want to offer up the city's support without the council's direction through the mayor, so.
Madam Mayor, if I may, to the council, my suggestion, however you go, is, Eric, I don't know that there's enough time for you to pull everything.
Not by
next
tomorrow.
Council meeting.
No.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so I think that we just work with, if it's okay with council, we will get it on the next available agenda, giving him some time to gather the information. And it becomes it's an agenda discussion item, and then for tracking purposes, whatever information you find, we'll bring it forward in another IM, but we'll put it under probably new unfinished business at that point, or new, does that sound like a good plan?
Sounds great.
Okay, and then as you guys discuss and there's more information, then you can formulate, and then we come back with the actual documents, whether that's an ordinance, a resolution. Does that work for everybody?
I'll work with finance to make sure we have a payment process that's, you know, not onerous for them too, so.
Madam Mayor? Yeah, I'd like to see you come back with something for us. I'd also very much would like you to work with finance on this, and, you know, maybe we can be creative with this too, and instead of us paying for things, we give owners a credit on their utility bills. Something like that, where we're not cutting checks and having that issues, we're just doing credits on their accounts, things like that, don't, should be maybe a little bit less onerous on finance, just something to think about. Options would be nice.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we are gonna take a 5-minute break. It's 7:42, we'll be back at 7:47. Don't you forget the fiasco that COVID created. What finance 7. Madam Clerk, we are now on to audience comments.
Nope, we got the resolution.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Would you like me
Okay,
to read it?
yes,
Okay.
please.
It's resolution serial number 2508, providing an opportunity for review and public comment pursuant to Wasilla Municipal Code 390-085C on the collective bargaining agreement between the City of Wasilla and the Wasilla Police Department Employees Association, and providing for the Wasilla Police Department Employees Association and the City of Wasilla to enter into negotiations for a new contract and authorizing the administration to begin contract negotiations. We do have a clerk note here. The council will take public comment on the resolution pursuant to Wasilla Municipal Code 390-085C. After the public comment period has closed, the council will act on the resolution and may act to enter executive session regarding contract negotiations.
Okay. Public comment is open on resolution serial number 25-08. Anyone wishing to testify, please come forward and begin by stating your first and last name. Your comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Seeing no one, we will close public comment. Is there a motion to adopt resolution serial number 25-08?
Madam Mayor, I move to adopt resolution serial number 2508.
Is there a second?
Madam Mayor, I second.
It has been moved by Councilmember Cottle and seconded by Councilmember Velock to adopt resolution serial number 25-08. Is there discussion?
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Graham?
Thank you. So, my only concern here is just having one opportunity for public comment and having kind of a limited amount. I mean, when did we publish the notification of this meeting? Tuesday or Wednesday, I think. You know, I would like to see public comment extended. I don't see any problem with us moving forward with saying, yeah, we need to enter into this discussion, but I do think public comment should be extended until the end of the next city council meeting. So now people have a couple of weeks to come forward with their comments about concerns with the contract with the WPDEA. I don't know how we would handle that, Madam Clerk.
So thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple things. I think that if council is interested in a longer period, I would recommend probably an ordinance change so that there's clear direction. We've done it a variety of ways through the years. Right now, code calls for public comment, which is what we're having one session. Certainly the council, you know, there's time constraints I think you might want to be involved in. I think that it is certainly your decision, but we could, if you're interested in running this through kind of the introduction process, which is heightened public notice, we probably ought to change code, and instead of just saying public comment, you know, we can refer it back to that process. I just, you know, I'm a big process person, so whatever we do, I'd like it to be consistent moving forward. So I'd hate for us to extend it this time for the sake of more public comment, and then the next time we forget. That's really a council, I mean, I know that the code change comes later, but it, you know, truly is your call on this. But we did have just the one, it was published with the agenda. Code.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the first of 3 union negotiations coming up. Is that correct?
Through the chair to Councilmember
Or is this the third of 3? I mean, because we have 3 unions that we deal with and we go through this process 3 times, so.
Good evening, everyone. Through the mayor, Mr. Graham,
Excuse me, please state your name for the record.
Oh, excuse me. Cassie Lynn, Director of Finance. We have the 3 union agreements. 302 is not set to expire until March 31st of 2026 of next year. 341 expires on June 30th of 2026, and this one expires at the end of this year on June 30th of 2025. So this is the only one that would be coming forward currently for this fiscal year, coming up fiscal year.
But this is the first of 3 negotiations that we'll enter into over the next 12 to 18 months.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, is there further discussion?
Madam Mayor? I
Mr.
believe
Johnson?
in the past, we as a council were told who would be negotiating for us, and we, I think in the past, looked at various things that we as a city would like in the negotiation. Is that what I remember correctly on previous?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Is that a motion? Is there a motion?
Okay, Mr. Johnson, are you wanting an executive session?
Wouldn't be ready for an executive session unless somebody else in the council has things that they would like to see. I mean, I just was remembering that we had those discussions in the past, that's all.
And Madam Mayor, I would like to see us go into executive session with our labor lawyer. I don't know who that is now, but in the past, that has always been, you know, the council has been able to express their concerns and perhaps their goals. The administration has been able to talk about their goals for the negotiation, and the labor lawyer got a good laugh about that and let us know where we could really go. So, but I would like to see us, the council, to be able to have that executive session with the attorney representing us in the labor negotiations.
Madam Mayor? And if we did that, have an executive session to do that, we can still keep the public hearing the same. We can still stay on the same schedule for this without, you know, adding another public hearing for the contract, correct? Because there's time to.
Through the chair to council member, I think I would probably move to enter tonight. It's on the agenda. You could go in with the administration. While Jess is not our contract attorney, she's an attorney. I know that whatever requests you have, she will take back to whoever the city is using for union negotiations.
Jennifer.
Jennifer Alexander, I'm very confident with that, but it's really your call.
Mayor, then we could stay on schedule more, yeah.
Okay.
So I would second it, so we could go.
Okay, the motion has been made by Ms. Vlock and seconded by Ms. Rubio to go into executive session for contract negotiations with the Wasilla Police Department Employees Association for matters which the immediate public knowledge of which would clearly have an adverse effect upon the finances of the city, and matters which by law, municipal charter, or ordinance are required to be kept confidential, and to discuss matters involving consideration of city records that by law are not subject to public disclosure, and discussion of matters matters subject to the attorney-client privilege. I'm sorry, Madam Clerk, you should have read that.
Who would you, who does the council want in executive session?
Okay.
Madam Mayor, may I suggest that the executive session include the council, the mayor, and the city attorney? Because we're talking about goals for the.
Why would you
and
not
the
want
clerk,
the
I'm sorry.
finance director?
We've never included him or her in the past.
The council's choice.
If the council wants it there, that's fine.
Yeah,
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Johnson? Okay, somebody make a decision.
No, Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Is this something the HR manager should be involved in? I mean, it's the contract negotiation, that's, I mean, that makes more sense to me than.
Who do we have, Madam Mayor, who do we have going in? Sorry, clerk.
We have the entire council, mayor, city attorney, and city clerk.
I think
Who
that's good.
who from, okay, that's the motion.
I trust Mr. Graham, he's done this before, so he knows it, yeah.
She's not gonna know anything. 'Cause we haven't had conversations with Jess, we've only had conversations with Jennifer.
Who's, I don't want to overstep here, who's on the negotiating team from the city?
Kim, the chief, Lori, and myself. And I'm actually, in my job description, as the chief negotiator for the
Yeah,
city.
so with our finance director is
Yeah.
included as well.
So Kim, Lori, and Cassie,
And the chief.
those are our negotiating team.
The council has requested the chief negotiator in.
So-
Do you feel comfortable with that?
Madam Mayor, would it be possible to approve this and then hold an executive session on the next meeting, once we have the full team assembled for the negotiation?
And with the
I mean, we can have the executive session that, because that's independent of us starting to form the team and getting the negotiations underway.
Through the chair to the council, I think, we have our chief negotiator here. It's up to the council, but I'm truly confident Jess, while she may not be intimately familiar, will get the right information back to our labor attorney, but it's up to council.
I'd kind of like to see our labor attorney there, because I'm assuming that she is actively engaged in negotiations with other labor unions, with other cities, and can kind of tell us where things are going and how they're going and what sticking points are. So I would kind of agree with Mr. Johnson that having our labor attorney there would be helpful.
If I could, this is Jess. I think that tonight the main purpose is to make sure that you've held public comment under your code, and then to provide any feedback that council has on negotiations before they begin. So it would make sense to me to have your chief negotiator, your finance director there with you to hear those things. And then to Jamie's point, I can hear that direction as well, but to Councilmember Graham's point, absolutely, I cannot tell you about the trends in labor negotiations in Alaska or anything that's happening or provide you that kind of feedback. So if you want to stay on timeline and go ahead and do the public comment tonight, give any feedback you have to me so it can be communicated to Jennifer, and then move forward, you can always hold another executive session at a future date to hear from Jennifer. But it doesn't have to hold up your ability to move forward. And you may want to ask your finance director if she's concerned about timeline. Would she like to have the resolution passed tonight so that negotiations can go ahead and commence, and you guys can continue to stay involved? Or if timeline isn't an issue, in which case you could just postpone and move forward in the future. But if you're trying to hold the timeline, I think you have the tools available to do that tonight.
Through the mayor, we are trying to hold a timeline. We do have it in our current collective bargaining agreement that we must meet in the month of February with them to begin negotiations, to begin that process. And one reason that I would recommend to have it sooner rather than later is it helps with the budgeting process. It helps me to build that budget and to build that personnel side of things and to make sure that we are having the best projections that we can possibly get. The further down the road we get, the further I have less projections and less things to build into the budget that we will be printing out and getting into the council's hands in, I believe, April. So, and it will, it'll take a little while for us to do the negotiation part of this, I believe.
Madam Mayor. So what it sounds like is maybe the council wants to wait until the next regular meeting, which is the 11th. I mean, we're talking 2 weeks away to hold executive session. Our finance director said we have to start the negotiations with them in the month of February. So if we at least have the executive session in February on the 11th, there's still 2.5 weeks left in February for them to have that meeting. I mean, I would honestly like to wait and prepare myself a little bit more, spend some more time looking at this so I can understand it a little bit better. This is my first time going through this agreement.
Madam Mayor. I personally would like to do it tonight. We have our negotiating team where we can ask questions, and we can stick with the timeline, but our negotiating team's here. I think it's a perfect opportunity myself.
Madam Mayor. I would agree with Belock. I feel like we need to try to keep this on the timeline that it's on. I have no problem going back into executive decision or committee in the sense of if we have to later, but just to get the ball rolling, I feel like. And that will also help, I think, iron out some questions along the way.
we have a question.
Is there objection to the executive session being held tonight?
I object.
Roll call vote.
Okay. Executive session tonight with the council, mayor, city attorney, clerk, and finance director. Councilmember Cottle.
Yes.
Councilmember Graham.
Yes.
Johnson.
No.
Councilmember Crafton.
Yes.
Councilmember Vlock.
Yes.
Councilmember Rubio.
Yes.
Motion to enter executive session passes. Councilmembers Cottle, Graham, Crafton, Vlock, Rubio in support. Councilmember Johnson opposed. To the city attorney, we will disconnect here and I will recall you from the phone in the conference room. Okay?
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay. Council, city attorney, city clerk, and finance and mayor.
I was wondering the same.
Okay. The rest of you are free to go. And audience comments, there's no one in the audience, so I will close audience comments, bring it back to the dais. Madam Clerk.
Mayor, I will be brief. Just want to again remind you, the APOC due March 15th. Report, as Cindy commented, I'll be assisting with training for the Planning Commission Airport Master Plan update. If you're interested, Tuesday, February 11th, 5:30 to 7:30 at the Menard Center. I believe our audit will be on the February 10th council meeting agenda, as Cassie reported at the last meeting. And then AML Winter Legislative Conference, Cottle, Graham, Crafton, and Velock are confirmed to attend. Thank you.
Madam Attorney.
Yes, you guys will have Zoe Eisberg at your planning commission meeting tomorrow night, and then Holly will be doing the training with Jamie on Wednesday night, and Jennifer will be back tomorrow, and I'll get her the download on everything we've discussed, and we'll just follow up on any outstanding items. Thank you guys for having me, and sorry I couldn't be there in person.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Are you the one that was looking at whether or not we could rent to Nick Begich?
Yes, Jennifer and I both talked about that, Mayor.
And?
So the general, as long as you feel like you're complying with the provisions of your lease, your code lease provision, which is not going to come to my head right now, but as long as you're complying with that and you've considered kind of the practical considerations, Mayor, there's nothing necessarily barring it, but we would want to walk through that analysis. I think Jennifer had tried to get a hold of you to talk to you about some of it because she was worried about the practical notions of how that space is set up after you guys have had to make changes due to, I think, the First Amendment auditors and things like that. But I had never heard where that was at as far as status.
Okay.
But feel free to follow up with us.
I will. Thank you.
Yep.
Councilmember Cottle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Lively meeting tonight. I appreciate everybody. I'm really glad to hear that the Planning Commission is going to have training session. When I was on planning, there wasn't any, and all the links that I got to do training on my own, none of them were valid anymore. So I'm really happy to see that. I think it's going to be great for the Planning Commission, and honestly, I would love to sit through that training. Just.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd like to sit through their training and know what they're gonna end up knowing. You know, we work hand in hand with them at times, and it's nice to know
What do you
if
think,
we're
Jim?
all on the same page.
Can Kathy sit through the?
Because it's a public meeting, right? Yeah.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. So if I don't get,
Thrilled to have you there.
they may not be, but I just, you know, I was taught as a little kid, no knowledge is wasted.
And they're always, if you don't feel like it, of course, that'll be recorded just like the other ones.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if you want to refer back or whatever, it'll be online.
Yeah, and I have found that if I sit home and watch and listen to meetings, it's too easy to either fall asleep or I gotta take the dogs out and I gotta do this and that, and you get sidetracked too easy, so. But that's just me, but I'm really happy to hear that they're getting that training. I don't know if, you know, if our other commissions, Airport and Parks and Rec, if they have the opportunity to go through some of those trainings or not, I think it'd be good for all of our commissions. And that's all I have tonight, thank you.
Councilmember Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Two quick things tonight. Those of you that know Jeff Overstreet, you know, he passed away suddenly, and his celebration of life will be tomorrow at 3 p.m. at Wasilla Bible Church. Those of you that aren't familiar with Jeff may be familiar with his wife, Michelle, who is the CEO of My House. And those of you that don't know Michelle's history, you know, her maiden name is Carney. And Carney is a big name here in the Valley, had a lot to do with how things were set up here initially in the city of Wasilla and in the Matsu Borough. And that celebration of life is open to everyone, so if you would like to come by and pay your respects tomorrow at 3 p.m. at Wasilla Bible Church, you would certainly be welcome to do so. Also, please remember that on Thursday, I believe it's Thursday, January 30th, 3 to 7 p.m., Raven Hall, the Transportation and Planning Fair is going to be there. There will be at least a double-length table dedicated solely to the Wasilla couplet project. There's also going to be a table there dedicated to the Herman Street project and other things going on. So that's a really great time to get in and get doing things, because that couplet is, I mean, they're approaching 95% at this point, and essentially when it gets to 95%, we don't have any influence on how that changes. So I would highly recommend that everybody go there and put their input in, and if you want to gang up and put your input in together, just make sure you're a gang of less than 4, so, to do that. So, but anyway, those two things. Thanks, everybody, for being here tonight.
Councilmember Crafton.
Thank you, Mayor. Not much tonight. Just want to say it was a really good discussion around the backflow preventer valve. I really appreciate how we kind of came together and said, hey, we messed up as a city, and we want to make that up to our residents here. So a really good discussion, and looking forward to seeing you guys next time. Thank you much.
Continue. When we're done with comments, we need to do a little backtrack and adopt the resolution. And I can't take the credit. That's Deputy Clerk Sarah Stanifer, so thank you.
Councilmember Rubio.
That's awesome. It's teamwork. This is why it's teamwork. Great discussion tonight. Excited to meet the new planning clerk. That's really good. Love recognizing the Wasilla High School state champions. I mean, those kiddos work so hard for a chance to even get out of regions to go to state and then bring it home. I really think that the city recognizing them is an amazing thing, and they'll keep working hard.
Councilmember Johnson.
It was a good meeting, thank you, and more to follow, I'm sure.
Councilmember Velock.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good meeting. It was good discussions, and that's it. Let's go home.
Okay. It was a great meeting, whatever, and Jamie?
So we're going to backtrack here. And so we still have a motion pending, and that was to adopt resolution serial number 2508, which provided review and comment period, and then authorize administration to begin contract negotiations.
Do we need to exit committee of the whole? Do we need a motion to do that?
We were never in committee of the whole.
Or I mean, executive session.
Technically, we're out, so
We're out.
we're back on record, yeah.
So, is there objection to the motion of 25-08? Hearing none, it is adopted. So, with nothing else to come before